mute or listening, at least you can hear.
Where do I find this on Facebook at here?
This says it's live now.
No, but I mean, I'm gonna turn it on up here.
Yeah, he's supposed to be showing it. There's nobody in the audience though, right, Tubby?
No,
Yeah, there's nobody here.
You're fine.
nobody here. You don't have to worry about it.
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to officially call to order the meeting of the Charlestown Common Council for April 6, 2020 in very extenuating, slightly strange circumstances. I'll say right off the bat that we must be very patient with one another. These votes must be by roll call votes. And so as we work our way through the agenda, when it comes time to vote, I will call your name in order of district and just say yay or nay when I call your name, and I'll record the vote and announce the results, okay? It's a little different than being in person. This is so that our clerks can make sure that they get accurate minutes for this meeting. If at any point you cannot hear me, everyone start waving so that I know you can't hear me. Before you speak, it's going to take a little bit of patience. Make sure that no one else is speaking, and if you need attention, raise your hand or something, and I'll make sure that you get the floor. I would like to begin this meeting in lieu of being able to be together and all have flags and do the Pledge of Allegiance, and we don't have an invocation. I think it is appropriate in the current times to go ahead and just have a brief moment of silence for those who are being treated for COVID and for those who have passed away due to complications related to this virus. So if we could just observe a brief moment of silence for them. Thank you. We'll now do the roll call just to make sure that we have a quorum present. Again, these are unprecedented times due to the executive orders issued by the governor of Indiana. We do have the right to have this meeting by video and or teleconference. We do not have to all physically be present for this meeting. We still do have to count a quorum, however. So just please say present when I call your name. District 1, Bo Bertram. I didn't hear him. Is he on mute? Remember, if you're on mute, I can't hear you. Bo?
Okay, go ahead. I got mine.
Present.
Thank you. District 2, Ruthie Jackson.
Present.
Thank you. District 3, BJ Steele.
Here.
District 4, Brian Hester.
Present.
And at large, JT Cox.
Here.
Okay. Also joined by presiding officer, Mayor Treva Hodges. Did Donna, is clerk treasurer present? Are we just recording? I'm not sure. And then we have attorneys, the city attorney, Mickey Weber, and the council attorney, Michael Gillenwater, are all present, as well as some other people who have items on the agenda. All right, first up on our list is approval of agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda. And remember, I can't hear you if you're on mute.
Oh, sorry, I forgot about that. Yeah, I would like to make an addition to the agenda if possible.
Okay, can we go ahead and get it on the motion and seconded, and then in discussion we can make the addition?
Sure. I'll make the motion.
Okay, motion made by Brian Hester. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by JT Cox. Make sure you say your names. Okay, now in discussion, is there need for a change?
Yes, I'd like to add a resolution.
Okay. Can you tell what resolution, and has everybody received a copy of this resolution?
By email, yes. I don't know the numerical order, so I don't know what resolution number we're on. Donna, it'll be 8. So it'll be resolution number 2020 R08, a resolution regarding publication of public notices for the city of Charlestown and Common Council.
Okay, I've not received a final copy of this resolution, just so that you know, in my email. So I have not seen this one in its final version. But the motion has been made to approve the agenda and seconded. We can vote on making this change. Is there I guess we need to do a motion to approve the change. Is there a motion to approve the change?
I make that motion. Ruthie Jackson.
Motion to approve the change resolution by adding 2020 R08 made by Ruthie. Is there a second? Can't hear you.
Second.
Seconded by Brian Hester. All in favor, or is there any discussion on this, adding this resolution first? Hearing none. All in favor, we'll do a roll call vote of adding Resolution 2020 R8 to this agenda. Bo Bertram,
Yay.
Ruthie Jackson,
Yay.
EJ Steele,
Yes.
Brian Hester,
Yes.
JT Cox.
Yay.
Okay, and then we need to do a final vote because we had a motion for the approval of the agenda as all. We've approved unanimously the addition of this item to the agenda, so we need to approve the agenda. I'll go down the list again. Bo Bertram, Ruthie
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
BJ Steele,
Yes.
Brian Hester,
Yes.
JT Cox.
Yes.
Okay, so a motion has been approved to, for the agenda for the evening as modified. I can entertain a motion if you'd like to approve. You've all been provided a copy of the prior meeting's minutes, the claims, and the payroll allowance docket from March 2nd, 2020 to April 4th, 2020. We can combine those into one motion if you wish, and I'll entertain a motion to approve all three of those items as they were provided.
Make the motion. JT.
Who made that motion? JT? Okay, motion made by JT Cox. Is there a second?
Brian Hester, second.
Brian Hester seconds it. Is there any discussion on the minutes, the claims, or the payroll allowance docket as provided? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Bo Bertram,
Yes.
Ruthie Jackson,
Yes.
EJ Steele,
Yes.
Brian Hester,
Yes.
JT Cox.
Yes.
Okay, so the minutes, claims, and payroll docket are approved. Woo, unanimously. I don't know what that was, feedback there. Has there anyone that has arrived in the chambers for public comment?
No.
Okay,
No one here.
no public comment. I have no updates. So we'll move on to the ordinances and resolutions. If I go too fast, hold up a hand or say something. The first ordinance for consideration tonight is ordinance 2020 OR6. This is an ordinance that amends the 2020 OR1. It's the salary ordinance for the year. The change to this is there is an additional position separated out under planning and zoning, so that we have the director of planning and zoning, and then we also have a separate position for building inspector code enforcement. These are two positions that have been filled in various roles, full and part-time, and the State Board of Accounts has asked us to reconsider that. So I'm sponsoring this ordinance for the council tonight to consider adding that change in. So I'll entertain a motion to approve this ordinance.
I'll make that motion.
Motion
Ruthie Jackson.
made by Ruthie Jackson. Is there a second?
Brian Hester, second.
Seconded by Brian Hester. Any discussion, further discussion on this ordinance?
I have a question.
Ma'am?
Okay, so we're adding a whole new position because it used to be a part-time position and now it's a full-time position. Is that correct?
Sort of, it was the code enforcement. We had a part-time code enforcer in the previous years. And basically this department the workload for this department has increased so much that we really need two positions here. We have, currently we've had Tony Jackson on contract, serving as a contract employee, doing all of the administrative paper side of things with the building commissioner role. And Mike Hughes has been doing full-time inspections. And so for every home, every place that he inspects, it requires 8 different trips, 8 inspections. And our permits are really off the charts in numbers. We have record number of permits, higher this year than in the past. So we're trying to make sure that we move from that contract position into 2 full-time positions, yes.
And there's enough money in the budget. I assume this includes, we've gone from a part-time to a full-time. It includes perf, insurance, and everything else that goes with it.
The 2 people who would be doing this they're not on insurance, and they're aware of, they're not on the city's insurance. This would just be their salary and hourly rate, and they're aware of that. It's also able to be, yes, it is fully funded. I'm verified with the clerk treasurer that it can be funded.
And there's room in the budget for it.
Yes, I've verified that it can be funded through the budget.
That's all I have.
Any additional discussion? Okay, I'll call for a roll call vote on this one. Bo Bertram,
Yes.
Ruthie Jackson,
Yes.
BJ Steele,
Yes.
Brian Hester,
Yes.
JT Cox.
Yes.
Considering that this has been approved unanimously by all members, I will entertain a motion to suspend the rules in anticipation of approving this ordinance on its second and final reading.
So moved. Brian Hester.
Motion made by Brian Hester. Is there a second?
Second, Ruthie
Second.
Jackson.
Seconded by Ruthie Jackson. Is there any additional discussion? Okay. Voting on the motion to suspend the rules in anticipation of approving this ordinance on its second and final reading, we'll do roll call. Bo Bertram,
Yeah, say it again. Say it again. You'll have to say it again. I didn't have it.
Yes.
Ruthie Jackson,
Yes.
BJ Steele. Unanimous decision for reading of ordinance 2020 OR 6, amending the salary ordinance for its second and final reading. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Ruthie Jackson. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by BJ Steele. Any additional discussion? Hearing and seeing none, we'll call for the vote. Bo Bertram,
Yes.
Ruthie Jackson,
Yes.
BJ Steele,
Yes.
Brian Hester,
Yes.
JT Cox.
Yes.
Motion is approved on its second and final reading unanimously by all council. Thank you. Thank you guys for your patience. We're all doing really great. The next ordinance on our agenda for the evening is ordinance 2020 OR 7, an ordinance annexing territory contiguous to the city of Charlestown. We can get this motion, if we want to put this motion on the table, we can get it on the table and then have discussion and talk about the fact that this also includes a public hearing. But first, I need a motion to put the ordinance on the table.
I make that motion, JT.
JT, motion made by JT Cox. Is there a second?
Second.
Is that BJ? Seconded by BJ Steele. Okay, now in the discussion period. Brad, is there anything that you want to say about this in discussion since it's your,
No, ma'am. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer anything. This is a property that is pretty self-explanatory. The development itself is all included in Charlestown. This was just a 3.5 acre parcel that was left out some years ago. The property has already been applied for under development standards. That should be heard next week. So it's moving forward under, assuming we get everything taken care of, we need to do on the annexation. But I'd be happy to answer any questions if there's any. Other than that, I think the petition kind of speaks for itself somewhat. So
I can officially open this. This was advertised as a public hearing because it is a voluntary annexation, and I'll officially open the floor for any comments related to that public hearing. Does anyone show up? Do we have anybody there to speak?
No.
No? Okay, we can then close the public hearing section of this, having had no one show up to express any opinions, yay or nay on it. In the additional discussion period, is there anything that the council has that they want to discuss?
Sure. I'd like to ask a question, Brian Hester. Brad, what is the intentions for this land? Do you know?
yes, I do. The adjacent property owner, I believe it's Shamrock Properties, it's an entity. They're going to purchase this 3 acre parcel as well as on the other side of what they currently own, and they're going to expand operations from an apartment standpoint. I believe, and Mr. Jackson can correct me if I'm wrong here, I believe their engineers been working with Tony Jackson to kind of facilitate the development standards and work through that process, but I have not been a part of that. My client, the Southern Indiana Development Partners, is the current owner. It's under contract with Shamrock for them to purchase it contingent upon receiving the proper zoning approval and the annexation.
Yeah, I can elaborate on that a little bit to answer Brian's question. This
I just lost Tony.
Me too.
three of them on the existing lot, which would be on the western corner or the southwestern corner. And then on the proposed annexation site, they would like to have another 3 apartments. So it would be a total of 6, but the annexation site would be 3 additional 16 flex apartments, like they have at Parkside currently.
Thank you, Tony. I have not seen a development application nor any plans, so I couldn't speak to what exactly or how many they're wanting to do there. I just know it's going to be apartments.
Brad, could you do me a favor and say your first and last name and your address so that we have it on record for the minutes and who you're here representing?
Yes, ma'am, of course. Brad Benson with Applegate Pfeiffer Pulliam, located at 428 Meigs Avenue, Jeffersonville, Indiana. Counsel for the applicant, I'm sorry, the petitioner in this situation, Southern Indiana Development Partners, LLC.
Is there any other questions or discussion about this? I'm not sure. Good?
Hold on one second, Treva, please.
Sure.
Council wants to pass this on the first reading. You can suspend the rules and pass it on the second and final reading because there's a period of time we have to wait before the final ordinance can be passed. So I would suggest that if you wanted to pass this on its first reading, you could do that tonight and perhaps hear it on the second reading in May. If there were people that wanted to make comments, you could receive those between now and that meeting if you wanted to pass it at that time. People could be encouraged to do that electronically or mail things in, or if they wanted to show up at the May meeting if this stay home order has been rescinded by then.
Yes, I was getting ready to explain to, thank you, the council, or to put on public record that in a typical hearing, with a public hearing on this, we would have, of course, had people show up. But considering that we have a governor with executive orders out about, stay-at-home order, and we have a local travel advisory, we certainly don't want people to lose the opportunity to express opinions about this. We're prohibited from taking any more than just one vote tonight. And so residents who have concerns about this annexation or concerns, really, it's more about expressing any kind of remonstrances to it. The remonstrance period will continue, and people can send those to mayor@cityofcharlestown.com, or they can call in to the main line and speak to the building commissioner. We will record those. This then would be up for its second and final reading at the regularly scheduled May council meeting. So that's the action tonight. Any additional discussion?
No, we do need to vote on the ordinance though.
Yes, I was about to call for the vote.
Before you call for the vote, I think it's worth noting on the record, since this is fairly unusual for a public hearing, that previously on March 18th, the council's resolution did invite people to offer testimony, participate in public hearings electronically and by mail. I am going to encourage people, if they did not take advantage of that opportunity but wish to do so after this meeting, they still can. But to note that was already an action that the council approved and made public.
Okay, we'll call for the vote. Do a roll call vote. Please say yay or nay. Bo Bertram.
Yes.
Ruthie Jackson.
Yes.
BJ Steele.
Yes.
Brian Hester.
Yes.
JT Cox.
Yes.
Okay. So it approves on the first reading unanimously. As we said, there's still that period of where people can send in their concerns through electronic means, and then this will be considered on its second and final reading at our regularly scheduled May council meeting. So,
Thank you all.
you're welcome.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you, Brad, for your patience.
Not a problem. Have we get to take care of?
Yeah. Okay, we have the added resolution for consideration. Resolution 2020 R8 is in the agenda on this spot. I don't have a copy of that resolution in its final form, so I'll turn it over to whoever is sponsoring that resolution to explain it.
Okay, so this resolution, I don't know if you want me to read it verbatim or not, but I just want to talk about this resolution. Is making sure that when announcements are made to the public, in consideration of the council, that we would like to make sure that the council has approval of what is sent out as a public comment or a announcement, public announcement. And we just want to make sure that the council has approval of it.
So is that a motion to put the resolution on the table?
Oh, yeah, I'd like to make the motion and put the resolution on the table, sorry.
Motion made by Brian Hester. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by,
Ruthie Jackson.
okay. Any additional discussion or question? I, again, have not seen the final version of this resolution, so I do not know what the text of this resolution says.
If I might, this is Mike Yellenwater, and a couple of things caused us to put this forward. What's going to allow? Prior to the COVID-19 virus becoming a pandemic, there had been discussions about the possibility of creating a cumulative capital development fund, and discussions were had. And after the governor's orders, executive orders began coming out, some of the members of the council, and I think the mayor as well, determined that given the economic hardship that's being placed on people who are out of work and businesses who can't get their employees to come in, that now would not be a good time. Prior to the time those discussions began, there had been some discussion about the possibility of doing this, and I believe that based upon the advice given to the city by some financial consultants, the financial consultants drew up some legal ads, and they made arrangements to have those put in the paper as is required by the law. Well, then the COVID-19 thing came to pass, and the council, some of the discussions that occurred that I just described, but the advertisements that were ordered for the newspaper, according to the financial consultants, I believe, they just went ahead and ran those because they were not aware that there were discussions to hold off on that at this time. So this resolution does two things. One thing it does is it makes it very clear that the council does not intend to create a cumulative capital development fund that would cause people in the city to be taxed with an additional tax in these economic times. The second thing that it does is it requires that if there's going to be an advertisement placed in the newspapers under the name of the council or describing council action, that the council actually approve that in advance. And if the whole council can't approve it, then someone from the administration or whoever's going to put it in the paper needs to obtain written approval from Mr. Hester or whoever the council president is prior to that time. That will just avoid any misunderstandings and make sure that the council's on top of what's going on. I don't think there was any intent here to create a false impression, but the way things have turned out in the last month, it's been a little bit unusual. And this is just a step that the council wants to make. Number one, to clear up the fact that there's not going to be a new tax. And number two, to make sure that if there are going to be other ads run, that the council know about that in advance.
So essentially, this resolution does what a press release that the city released on March 24th did, and recalling that and saying that although those ads would run, the tax would not be considered. And also the council is asking, again, I haven't seen the final version of this, so the council is asking that in the future, they just be notified when an ad if an ad's going to have your name on it, you want to know that you approved it. Is that essentially what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any additional discussion?
I have questions. I don't know if y'all want to ask the questions about the ad. I have questions about the ad.
Can't hear.
Questions about the ad. It was put in the paper.
Sorry. Okay. The ad was put in the paper, and I've never had a discussion with anybody. I was called on the 20th. I was asked to go to a meeting on the 23rd. It was canceled because of COVID-19. And then on the 26th, the ad ran. On the 24th, on the City of Charlestown Facebook page, it said that adoption of the fund had been discussed at recent Board of Public Works and Common Council meetings. And it was originally anticipated that the additional property tax would have been considered by the Common Council and open for public hearing on a regular scheduled April 6th meeting. The ad was sent to the paper, and I understand now that I guess I need clarification. Who sent the ad and who authorized the ad? Because it's saying in two different things that we've had discussions about it, and I've had no discussion about it. I was told that we were wanting to come to a meeting about a new tax and to explain it to me. Brian,
Okay.
had you had a conversation about it?
I'm happy to.
We had a brief conversation, but we were supposed to have a meeting to discuss it. And that meeting got canceled because of the COVID. So no, I never had an in-depth conversation about the
About
tax.
it. Bo, did you?
No.
JT, have you had a conversation? BJ, have you had a conversation?
No.
So it was said on Facebook, on the city's page, that we've had conversations in the common council meetings, and I just want to clarify that there's nothing in the minutes, and that's not true. There has not been conversations about this until we started getting phone calls. We did not understand what this tax was about.
Okay, the reason that it says the Common Council is because on February 11th at the council meeting, I mentioned that we were, in part of my update that you guys had asked me to provide you, I mentioned that we were looking at financial reviews, and the cumulative capital development was one of those reviews. And I had mentioned to Brian Hester, plus this idea of the CCD tax is something that the prior administration had considered at one point. This is something very common with most municipalities. Charlestown's one of the few that doesn't have it. And so it's not anything that's just terribly brand new. So no, the council did not have an in-depth conversation, and nor should you in a place that's not public. So that was the purpose of the ad, in order to call the council together. On February 19th at the Board of Public Works meeting, as I had explained on the 11th meeting, the financial consultant from Baker Tilly came and presented to the board and explained her whole financial review and also the purpose and use of this CCD fund. So that's where it had been discussed in open meetings. And then I had mentioned to Brian Hester that we were going to move this forward, and that the only way to do that for the whole council is to call the council together. So that's the purpose of the ad. Baker Tilly, the financial consultants, wrote the advertisement, and it was submitted by the city attorney under I was sponsoring the ordinance, so it was submitted that way. But Baker and Tilly have a common practice of listing the governing body that actually votes on the tax or the whatever they're advertising. So they listed the common council members because you're the governing body. It was not meant to imply that you were sponsoring it. It does not imply that you would vote to approve it. It's just listing your names as the governing body that has the authority to approve it. So when I did the press release, I made sure to put that I was sponsoring it and withdrawing it in conversation with Brian and the clerk treasurer that, hey, this isn't the right time to do this. So no, you should not have had a huge public discussion yet about that. That's the whole purpose of the ad, was to call together the hearing and the council to discuss it.
And if I could speak to the publication, which was the other part of your question, I did send the ad onto the newspaper. It was prepared by our financial advisors. I sent it the second week in March, and it needs to run twice a week apart, with the second publication not less than or more than 3 days before the meeting where it's going to be heard. And then frankly, with the number of things that came up in the intervening days, didn't think to cancel it until after the first publication. Canceled the running of the second ad. It should not have. They were instructed not to run it on April the 3rd. I did not check to see whether they did, but had directed and sent it on for publication prior to this becoming the crisis that we're all now dealing with.
And was that sent to our lawyer also?
The notice was not.
Okay.
Is there any additional discussion on this?
No, I think that's why we need this. I have no more discussion. Thank you.
I'll call for the vote. Roll call vote. Say yay or nay on approving Resolution 2020 R8. Bo Bertram,
Yes.
Ricky Jackson,
Yes.
BJ Steele,
Yes.
Brian Hester,
Yes.
JT Cox.
Yes.
The resolution passes unanimously. Moving on to old business on the agenda. We have 2 items for old business. You guys are being very patient. Thank you. Up for its second and final reading is ordinance 2020 OR4, adopting the unsafe building law for the city of Charlestown. I'll entertain a motion to put that on the table.
So move, Brian Hester.
Motion made by Brian Hester. Is there a second?
I'll second. Ruthie Jackson.
Seconded by Ruthie Jackson. Is there a discussion on this second reading of unsafe building law?
I will say, this is Mike Gilmore, and Mr. Weber forwarded a copy of that to us at the time, and we looked it over and had some discussions, made small changes, and I recommended to the council that it would be good to pass.
And
Additional,
You're going to ask about the fund.
yes.
Okay. That fund is set up to do normal operations. Say that they have to go out and cut the grass because somebody's not cutting their grass. Somebody has to pay them to cut the grass. So that fund is set up for that.
Any funds would be put into a fund that could be used to achieve the purposes of the ordinance. So if there was a building that needed to come down, say it burned halfway down, you needed to take it the rest of the way down, there was an absentee landowner and you couldn't get them to do it, then you could use money in that fund. When people pay fines, it goes into that fund. And when
Okay.
you need to use those funds, then you can.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
additional discussion on that? I'll call for the vote. Calling for the vote of ordinance 2020 OR4, the unsafe building law, for its second and final reading. Bo Bertram,
Yes.
Ruthie Jackson,
Yes.
BJ Steele,
Yes.
Brian Hester,
Yes.
JT Cox.
Yes.
The motion carries unanimously. Ordinance is approved on its second and final reading. The final ordinance in old business that we have today on the agenda is the second and final reading of ordinance 2020 OR5 for the adopting a property maintenance code for the city. Is there a motion to put this on the table for approval?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Ruthie Jackson. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by BJ Steele. Is there discussion on this ordinance? I can say that there were minimal changes between the first and second. We made sure that there were set dates on appeals. There were some minor changes had to be made to correct the court situation. So the correct circuit court was named. Minor grammatical issues corrected in the ordinance. I think that was it. Mickey, was there anything else that changed in that ordinance?
There was a suggestion from Tony having to do with parking on surfaces that was included. And I think Tony and Mike had that conversation, then Mike relayed it to me. There may have been, no, I think that's it. might have been some formatting stuff, but otherwise it's essentially the same.
Okay, this ordinance.
Excuse me, there was one other thing. You included the language about the appeals, but I think we inadvertently left out that the appeals would need to be filed 30 days of final action by the Board of Public Works. And Mickey and I discussed that this afternoon, and I think we both agree that that should go in there so that there is some deadline for appeals, so that they have to either do it within a month or they lose their right. Mickey,
You reference the section specifically there so that all of us are on the same page. I see on page 7 in H, section 2, where it says a request for a modification or variance or extension shall be placed on the Board of Public Works and Safety within 10 days of the applicant's receipt of a copy of the notice of order, and the Board of Public Works and Safety shall schedule a hearing within 30 days of the request. Is that the language that you're referring to?
no, not exactly. Hold on a second.
It seems to say they have 10 days from the time they get their order to turn in their appeal, and then the Board of Public Works has 30 days to hear it.
And if I could, I think what Mike's referring to is then the person would have a period of time to appeal that decision to the courts. And
That's
I agree
correct.
with him that it'd be appropriate to put a 30-day limitation on that time to close the window on appealing the final decision to the courts. I'm not sure because I don't have it in front of me and I can't seem to pull it up on my computer without closing the meeting. But so I can't tell you what line it's on, but I agree with both the concept and the time frame and that it is
Page 8.
appropriate.
On page 8 and at the bottom of the page there in paragraph 6 where it says court review, it says any interested party having standing, whether or not a previous party of the appeal shall have the right to apply to the appropriate court for a writ of certiorari to correct errors of law. And I think all you need to do is to put in there within 30 days of final action by the Board of Public Works and Safety. Just like Mickey said, add that limitation to 30 days.
Okay, so barring any other discussion, one item would be to amend, to accept this as amended under section 6, on page 8, on the court review, to add the language at the end of that sentence that says within 30 days of final action of the Board of Public Works. Okay. Okay, so discussion. Barring any other discussion, one item. Is there any other discussion?
Nope.
I will call for a vote on this as amended, as recommended on page 8 by adding that language within 30 days of final action of the Board of Public Works. So I'll do a roll call vote. Bo Bertram. I can't.
Yes.
Okay. Ruthie Jackson.
No, it was Bo Bertram.
Yeah, I heard him say yes.
I'm sorry. Yes.
So
I
Ruthie,
can't hear.
BJ Steele,
Yes.
Brian Hester,
Yes.
JT Cox.
Yes.
So the motion to accept ordinance 2020 R5 on its second and final reading with that language amended approves unanimously. Good news, guys. That's all the business.
Good job, Tony.
Can entertain a motion to adjourn. Do we know?
I'll make that motion.
JT Cox makes that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Who seconded? BJ Steele seconded. Any objection to this? Let's do a real quick roll call. Bo Bertram,
Yes.
Yes. Ruthie Jackson,
Yes.
CJ Steele,
Yes.
Ryan Hester,
Yes.
Stacy Cox.
Yes, you all stay safe.
Thank you all for your patience and your understanding. Have a great night. The meeting is adjourned.